Hello and welcome to 69.9 WTR, aka the Rebel Radio. Um, so basically on this broadcast, we're a bunch of stuck-at-home morons because, as you know, if you've been living under that rock still, I've been telling you, get the fuck out from under that rock for 5 seconds, realize that the world's falling apart as usual, but this time worse than normal, and, yeah. So basically, New Jersey's under a lockdown. That's typical because of some fucking Chinese virus. With the hopes that it will eventually go away with social distancing, and I guess social distancing is a nice way, basically saying that you and your fuck buddy and everybody, and then everyone basically stay the fuck away from me, which is kind of depressing, but it's kind of nice because remember, here at the Rebel Radio, we always got your back. So basically, if you're one of those people that doesn't like to leave your house ever, this is great. This is just another day in paradise for you. Okay, that was Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins. That's a very good song, and that is basically how all introverts are feeling right now, because it's like, hey, I don't have to leave my house. We're basically getting paid to sit at home and be fucking creepy and weird like we love to do. Um, so yeah, so that goes out to you guys. Make sure you wash your hands. It's been a couple minutes, so make sure you wash your hands, because you want to make sure your hands, when this is all over, pretty much have no skin on them anymore. Um, so now we're gonna turn it up a little bit. We're gonna play a different song. I feel like, we'll do something a little more, you know, upbeat. Probably a more well-known song. So let's look this up and find it. And here we go. Here's a classic that we always used to play. We haven't played a lot because people got tired of it. So here we go. Okay, we're back. That was My Hero by the Foo Fighters. Haven't listened to that song in a long time on the station, but I figured we should start because I really do like that song. So now we're gonna talk a little bit. Okay, so I'm getting mass influx of text messages and other notifications right now because why not? So that's why I keep stopping. Sorry about that. So currently, I feel fine. You might not. I don't know. I mean, it depends on where the fuck you've been, who the fuck you've been around, what the fuck you stuck in your mouth while you're at the store. Because true story. One time I was in my local Rite Aid a few years ago, and I was there by myself, and there was this family there, and a typical Karen type family where the mom's on her phone, not paying attention. She was hot though, I'll give her that, but that's about all she had going for her. Mom's on her phone, not paying attention. Her little screaming kids are going through the store, and they're licking things on the shelf and putting things in their mouth. And she's on the fucking phone like, "Oh, everything's okay. Hold on, I gotta make sure I got the kids." And then she called the kids over, and they didn't listen. They kept doing their little thing. I don't know if the kids had problems or if they were just being stupid. They were pretty young, but really, lady, don't let your kids lick things. You don't know what the hell they've been in contact with, like anything on the shelf. And, don't let your kids lick things on the shelf because you don't know where those things have been either. Because if they're licking things on the shelf, God knows what else they've licked. Maybe they licked a fucking frog. I don't fucking know. That was a special day, so I immediately left that store and went to another place, hoping that particular Karen wasn't there. But the problem is with the Karens is, once you got one around, that means they're all gonna start flocking over. Basically, the way I see it is the Karens are like cockroaches. You got one, you got a million of them. They're really, somebody should do something about those things because they're in a Lysol and paper towel and toilet paper fueled rampage right now, which makes it worse. So, yeah. So anyway, like I said, I feel fine.
To me, she's happy as can be, she said so. I'm in love with her and I feel fine. Baby says she's mine, she tells me all the time, she said so. I'm in love with her and I feel fine. I'm so glad that she's my little girl. She's so glad she's telling all the world that her baby buys the things, he buys a diamond rings, she said so. She's in love with me and I feel fine. Baby says she's mine, she tells me all the time, she says so. I'm in love with her and I feel fine. I'm so glad that she's my little girl. She's so glad she's telling all the world that her baby buys the things, he buys the diamond rings, she said so.
Alright, that was I Feel Fine by the Beatles. Yeah, basically that's describing how I feel right now. I mean, God knows I was out in public. Somebody coughed a mile away from me, so that might change at any second. So basically, oh my God, sorry. Yeah, so far our stream seems to be going well. I'm proud of that. So anyway, now we're all sitting at home, being stuck at home morons, because essentially the world's closed. Some places are opening up, some places are still open, but for the most part, the world's closed. Um, I'll read some good news. Actually, somebody sent this to me, and I am going to read it right now. Because nobody ever looks at the good news in these things. So somebody sent me this, and it seems pretty true because I fact checked most of these things. It's about a certain virus that's going around. China has closed down its last something virus hospital. Not enough new cases are there to support them. Don't trust China. That could be wrong, but I kind of do believe that, at least mostly. Doctors in India have found certain medicines, I can't even read some of the names of these, that are used. They're typically used to treat AIDS, malaria, Ebola, rheumatoid arthritis. They're using them, and they've had great results against this. I don't know if you heard that, but that is one of them. Um, Researchers have claimed to found an antibody against this virus. I do believe that, because honestly, all they have to do is take a blood sample of a person that, and yeah, they just need to take a blood sample and look at the antibodies and see what they have there. That is not a very long shot. 103-year-old Chinese woman has made a full recovery after being treated 6 days. I believe that. Apple's opened their 42 China stores, and I do believe that because that came directly from Apple. Let's see what else. South Korea, the number is declining. I trust South Korea. Italy is hit hard. Yes, that we all know. But you got to keep in mind that Italy has a very old population, and older people generally have a higher mortality rate with this virus. Yeah, and there's several vaccines currently being developed, and they mostly have to be tested. I do believe that. Okay, so yeah, so that's some good news. You can ponder that while you're being a stuck-at-home moron, and remember to wash your hands. And remember what I said the other night. If you're fingering yourself, think about to my voice. That could be kind of hot, but that could also be creepy, depending who you are. And don't be jerking off during this, because that's just fucking weird. Okay, that's just fucking. And if you are, don't tell me about it. So anyway, being stuck at home morons. Basically, you feel like a bunch of deadbeats, and that you could. Some people could feel like that. Sometimes I feel like that. I never thought I'd say this, but I actually want to go back to work, even though I've only been out of work for 2 days. But, like I've also said, work was extremely boring and slow and ridiculous to even have open the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to a day that we're swamped when this is over. So I can stop feeling like a deadbeat and no longer have to fit in with the deadbeat club.
Get a job!
What for?
I'm trying to think.
I was good, I could talk a mile a minute.
Okay, that was the Deadbeat Club by the B-52s. Now, continuing on with what we were doing, well, let's just say that you remember the other night we played a song, and I remember my studio producer over here. Well, not over here because can't be in the same room as each other because we have like a one person per fucking square mile limit at this point. Um, he mentioned that he really liked one of these songs off of the From Genesis to Revelation album, so I am going to play that in a bit. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about. I don't know. We'll think of something. I'm good at this. I haven't been drinking yet, so I'm not very funny yet. That will change, I promise. Today was a very productive day because I knew that, basically we were going to turn into Socialist America tonight at 9 p.m. So I went out and did some shit while I had freedom, some freedom. And, well, let's just say I had fun. Went on a hike. And, yeah. Now, let's just get this out of the air because we're gonna acknowledge the elephant in the room. Bernie Sanders became president. This would probably become more like a daily occurrence. Just prepare for that. And I doubt that'll ever happen, but just prepare for that. Now, for the people that aren't used to Bruno FM, I'm going to explain something of how this works. And, well, basically, I play a song, sometimes two, rarely more than two in a row unless you do some kind of special thing, and then I talk a bit in between each song. I might talk about something going on in the world. I might say some random stupid bullshit that means nothing to anyone but me, and it probably doesn't even mean anything to me. I might talk about the album that the song came off of, the history of the band. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, in case you weren't listening the other night. From Genesis to Revelation was the first album by Genesis, released in 1967. Sold 650 copies, was basically a flop. And for that very reason, you only hear the songs if they play weird music on the radio, which is very rare. Because, nobody's going to listen to a song that everyone doesn't know. So, instead of listening to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen 30 times in a row, on every station that plays classic rock, or listening to Piano Man by Billy Joel, or Land of Confusion by Genesis, or Iron Man by Black Sabbath. Sometimes you want to listen to something a little more, as they put it on my local radio station, off the back wall. I like that term, but I don't like that term because sometimes they'll play a song that they still play a lot and just say, oh, we don't play it as much as fucking Bohemian Rhapsody, but that means it's off the back wall. I don't get it. I don't get the logic behind that, but I will say, since I guess they must have had some change in management at that station, they've been playing a lot of different songs. They've been playing a lot of the same songs, but every 3 or 4 songs they play something they don't usually play now. So I'm going to assume whoever makes the track list over there or whatever has actually fucking thought, oh, maybe people don't want to listen to the same 5 songs, so we'll play 4 of those 5 songs and then play something different. That's enough to keep me listening to that station more than just background music, but actually listening to it. So I'm going to try and avoid the same trend here. So yeah, we're going to have a few songs we're going to play over again, but I generally like change pace. So this is the song that my studio producer David liked. So we're gonna play it. This is "Am I Very Wrong" by Genesis.
Am I very wrong
to hide behind the glare from an open-minded stare. Am I very wrong to wander in the fear of a never-ending life? Am I very wrong to try to close my ears to the sound they play so loud? Am I very wrong? The happiness machine is trying hard to sing my song. To steal a pin, then I'll check that I have skin. Am I very wrong to want to leave my friends on the curse of the happiness machine? Today's your birthday, friend. Everything
We hope your life will never end. Alright, so I'm going to read a blurb from a website that somebody wrote about the song, keeping in mind what the song was about and the album in general. And basically, a lot of people were thinking that this song was almost something to do with a birthday party where the person or the host of the party was depressed and he doesn't want any part of it. I don't know how they got that out of the song. I guess if you listen to it and interpret it the right way. And basically they thought that he was about ready just to leave and kill himself to the party. That has nothing to do with this album. If that's how you interpreted it, that is fine. But that's not what it's about. And then I'm reading this other comment here. It says, it's from Genesis to Revelation. It has nothing to do with the birthday party. The debut Genesis album was a concept album dealing with the Holy Bible. And I guess a concept album is a way to put it, because especially back then, it was not that common for an album to be really the whole thing to just flow together and each song tell a story. A lot of times it'd be different songs that each had their own little story. This is almost something similar to what Bob Dylan would do, or Steely Dan, or really Donald Fagen. Black Sabbath did it too with the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album, and we will play a little bit off that in a little while. Actually, we'll play something off that right now. But that album doesn't really make sense unless you listen to it start to finish. Now, I've known that album since I was 7 or 8 years old. I've loved it. It's definitely probably in my top 3 albums, and I'm going to say my top I'll give my top 5 albums. I'm gonna say number 1 would be the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album. Then would be the Diary of a Madman album by Ozzy. Then I feel like would probably come in third would probably be From Genesis to Revelation. I do like. I'm trying to think. I like the Royal Scam by Steely Dan a lot too. That's a good album. You should listen to it if you haven't. That's actually I went to a concert in October of 2015, and I went to go see because Steely Dan does a thing, and they did it last year too. I never got to go. I'm hoping they're gonna do it again the next few years. And honestly, Steely Dan, they are, when you see them live, they're not that different from the studio albums. They know their shit. They're not all over the place. Their music is still. They're such an underappreciated band because the quality of their music and the deep thought of their music and the deep thought that goes into it, a lot of people don't understand. Similar to the early Genesis stuff, it wasn't just churning out music because don't get me wrong, I like the Beatles. I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to say they're the best thing ever because they're not. The Beatles are one of those bands that I've always liked, I've always known about. They have a special spot with me where I can always listen to them, but I get in this thing with the Beatles where I'll listen to a lot of their music and then I won't want to hear a thing about them for 6 months. I get tired of them. But they, like the She Said, that song is really, I think that is very iconic, because it really was, it captures the era that it was written in and that it was produced in, which was the mid-60s, psychedelic rock, hippies. It was a thing. This album, Genesis, From Genesis to Revelation, was also written, produced, and marketed in the same time period, within a couple of years of that, of the Beatles' psychedelic rock. I don't even want to call them rock, really. I don't know if I'd call the Beatles rock. I feel like some of their songs are, and we're actually going to play a song that you really don't hear a lot by the Beatles. But it was this song when it came out was actually, it's off the White Album, I believe. Yeah, it is off the White Album. It is nothing like anything else that anyone really came up with. It was the beginning. It has a heavier, deep sound that a lot of people were surprised about. Because keep in mind, at the same time, they're singing about a yellow submarine or an octopus's garden, as I call it, an octopussy's garden. And then towards the end, they mellowed out. They started out as just a British boy band. They weren't anything special, and then they became famous. And then basically, the way I see it is, as soon as fucking they went to India, became fucking tree hugging hippies, and fucking went off on their psychedelic streak. That was kind of the end for them. Yeah, the psychedelic music wasn't bad. It was good. Some of it I can't stand. It depends on the song. And we'll play a couple songs from that period. One particular song I really don't like. Let me see if I can find. I don't even remember the name of it. But I'm gonna look it up right now. Let's look this up right now because I'm not really sure exactly what it's called. I don't remember what album it's off of. But if I look it up, psychedelic song, I can find it in a heartbeat. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds I like. Within You, Without You, that's probably the one I'm thinking of. I don't really like that song. Strawberry Fields Forever just fucking creeps me out. Tomorrow Never Knows, I like that song. We'll play that in a little bit. A Day in the Life, that song, I like it. I don't love it. But that is also a song that me and my dad got into a complete feud about because he was saying like singing parts of the song, and he was very obsessed that I had to know all these songs, and I knew them, and he didn't realize that. And it basically ended up with he sung parts of the song, and I'm like, it's a day in the life, and he's like, no, it's not. He's like, that's the difference. I'm like, no, it's a day in the life, and I'm like, I looked it up and I fucking showed it to him, and he got pissed at me because I knew something and he forgot, and then he basically he turned that into his own sick twisted way that I called him an old fart, and I'm like, no, you fucked up. I've done that myself. Yeah. So some of the psychedelic hippies Beatles stuff I don't like. Some of it is a little too much. Some of it I do like. But this is not psychedelic. This is off the White Album. This is the beginning of a heavier song, and I feel like it kind of sparked the way for heavier rock to become accepted in a society that was still kind of iffy with music, because this was 10 years after people were getting offended from Elvis fucking making quote unquote sexual gestures on stage, and they couldn't handle that. But this was, I feel like the 60s was really when things became more acceptable. A lot happened then. Cold War was going on, and you had the peace-loving hippies that couldn't stand anything fucking violent, and then you had the rest of the world. But I feel like without these songs, you know, there wouldn't be so many genres, and I feel like this particular song really sparked a way for a different type of rock.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. Till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But do you, don't you want me to love you? I'm coming down fast, but I'm miles above you. Tell me, come on, tell me the answer. Well, you may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Now helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Yeah. Will you, won't you want me to make you? I'm coming down fast, but don't let me break you. Tell me the answer. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Look out, helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Look out, crosses you come. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, and I stop and I turn and I go for a ride, and I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But do you, don't you want me to make you? I'm coming down fast, but don't let me break you. Tell me your answer. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Look out, helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Look out, helter skelter. So coming down fast. Yes, yes, yes. Coming down.
All right, so that was Helter Skelter by the Beatles off the White Album. Now, that song, when it came out, and people first heard it for the first time, they were more confused than anything. They didn't know what to make of it, because the Beatles, keep in mind, were going singing about how they want to hold your hand and how they feel fine, and a girl named Anna, to, you know, writing a song about, you know, yellow submarines, and then they came out with that. And the reason that people were taken off key by that was because they didn't really understand. They didn't know what it was. It was like its whole new genre, and it was just that song, really. And now, like I said before, while Genesis was practicing with concept albums and, you know, Jimi Hendrix was fucking being Jimi Hendrix, singing about a purple haze, also psychedelic rock, in Crosstown Traffic. Beatles came out with that. And you never expected that from the Beatles because, well, they were a British boy band, and that was, I want to say, that was before, let me see. I'm not great with dates, so I'm just going to double fact check real quick. Okay, yeah, that was after their psychedelic rampage with, you know, She Said, and other songs like that. They came from this boy band to this psychedelic rock, tree-hugging people to that, and that kind of sparked a new genre. And that was almost like a heavy metal or a hard rock kind of thing at the time. And that song I know is influential to people like Ozzy Osbourne that wanted to make a raw sound like that. They liked that over what rock was at the time compared to, you know, no, don't get me wrong, Ozzy and Tony Iommi and all the people of Black Sabbath, they started out as the Polka Tulk Blues band, and then they changed their name to Earth, and they wrote things like The Rebel, and they wrote things like When I Came Down. Now, When I Came Down, they only have half the song. They don't know, it's never finished. There's not a finished copy of it. There could be. It's not released. It was leaked out, just like The Rebel. It's not an official song. That's why there's no copyright rules or anything on it. They didn't want it getting out because they didn't like it. They hated it because it wasn't what they wanted. It was more of trial and error, see where it goes. And they were also doing covers of songs such as Blue Suede Shoes, which, as you know, is not a Black Sabbath song. They started out with that kind of music, and then they moved towards a more raw sound. And I know for a fact that Helter Skelter, I believe in one thing that I read that Ozzy said, that Helter Skelter was one thing that really drew him to. It's the sound and the way it was so much different drew him towards wanting to create music more like that, because the Beatles were very influential in his music career. Even to this day, people still find the Beatles being influential. Now, I'm not sure how people that write modern pop find the Beatles influential, because the music has nothing to do with it other than the fact that the Beatles started out as more of a pop rock kind of band. They were more pop than anything at the beginning, but that's more in just the name itself. That's like saying, you know, I drive a Toyota Prius and then this other guy drives an F-150, and they're saying, oh, well, they're both a vehicle. Yeah, they are, but they're nothing alike other than the fact that they're both a vehicle, and they both have four wheels. And that's kind of how it's comparing apples to oranges here. Now, later on, throughout the time, you know, you had the B-52s, which were considered new wave. You had REM, which I believe kind of danced on the line between new wave and rock. You had a lot of 80s one-hit wonders, and then there was this band that started becoming, they never really were that popular, but they were more popular than you think. You might not know them, but you might know some of the songs, and the people that tend to like this band seem to be you either love the band or you hate it. There's really no in between. They were more of a new wave rock kind of thing. I'm not sure if they're still around. I don't think they are, but I feel like they might still tour every once in a while. And here's a song by them. This was actually in an episode of The Simpsons where Bart gets a horse and he races it.
Reluctantly crouched at the starting line, engines pumping and thumping in time. The green light flashes, the flags go up. Churning and burning, they yearn for the cup. They deftly maneuver and muscle for rank. Fuel burning fast on an empty tank. Reckless and wild, they pour through the turns. Their prowess is potent and secretly stern. As they speed through the finish, the flags go down. The fans get up and they get out of town. The arena is empty, except for one man still driving and striving as fast as he can. The sun has gone down and the moon has come up. And long ago somebody left with the cup. But he's driving and striving and hugging the turns and thinking of someone for whom he still burns. He's going the distance. He's going for speed. She's all alone in a time of need. Because he's racing and pacing and plotting the course. He's fighting and biting and riding on his horse. He's going the distance. Yeah! No trophy, no flowers, no flashbulbs, no wine. He's haunted by something he cannot define. Bowel-shaking earthquakes of doubt and remorse assail him, impale him with monster truck force. In his mind, he's still driving, still making the grade. She's hoping in time that her memories will fade. Cause he's racing and pacing and plotting the course. He's fighting and fighting and riding on his horse. The sun has gone down and the moon has come up. And long ago somebody left with the cup. But he's striving and driving and hugging the turns and thinking of someone for whom he still burns. Cause he's going the distance. He's going for speed. She's all alone in a time of need. Because he racing and pacing and plotting the course. He's fighting and biting and riding on his horse. He's racing and pacing and plotting the course. He's fighting and biting and riding on his horse. He's going the distance. He's going for speed. He's going the distance.
Okay, so that was The Distance by Cake. And actually, there's a funny story behind that song. I used to walk a dog. His name was Marshall. He was a big, fat, massive, block-headed English lab. He was a yellow lab. Pretty sure he's still alive. But I know he lives in Chicago now. But it was just sad because I loved him. He was a good boy. But, yeah, I used to nickname him Cake because I would get extremely bored walking him because, well, he was a good dog and there was nothing for me to worry about. I wouldn't even have a leash on him half the time. He'd just walk next to me, go play in somebody's yard sprinkler because they had the in-ground sprinklers at the end of the road and he'd like to bite the water and then he'd get all pissed at it when it sprayed him in the eye. But it's a yellow lab. I mean, how scary could it be? It's just going to sit there and blob around. He was a good dog, though. He was definitely one of my favorite dogs. But I used to call him Cake because he looked like a piece of fucking of golden cake or yellow cake. So, yeah, when I found out this band was called Cake, I'd be like, hey, it's Marshall. Funny little fact. Nobody cares about that but me. But, yeah, that's how that goes. So, we're going to go to something a little newer this time. I'm trying to find. Is that the song I want to play? Okay, so a few years ago, about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, about 9 years ago, my mom found this band that she actually liked, and she said it reminded her almost of a more heavy, younger version of Joan Jett, and she really liked them. And this was Hailstorm, and I didn't really like them at the time. I thought they were kind of shitty, but the more I started to listen to them, I started to like their music. And I'm not a huge fan. I'm not going to listen to every song and say it's the best shit ever, but I do like it. So we're going to play a song by Hailstorm.
You don't know that I know you watch me every night, and I just can't resist the urge to stand here in the light. Your greedy eyes upon me, and then I come undone. And I could close the curtain, but this is too much fun. I get off on you, getting off on me. Give you what you want, but nothing is the right. It's all give and take, kind of life we make. When your line is crossed, I get off. I get off. There's so much left unspoken between the two of us. It's so much more exciting to look when you can touch. You could say I'm different, and maybe I'm a freak, but I know how to twist you to bring you to your knees. I get off on you, getting off on me. Give you what you want, but nothing is the right. It's all give and take, kind of life we make. When your line is crossed, I get off. I get off. What you don't know, what you can't see, is what I do for you, I do for me. I get off on you, getting off on me. I give you what you want, yeah. I get off on you, getting off on me. Give you what you want, but nothing is the right. It's all give and take, kind of life we make. When your line is crossed, I get off. I get off. I get off.
Okay, another artist that I really think it's another one of those artists where it depends on what what time period of his music I'm listening to. But I really do think he's good. I really do enjoy listening to his music. And you probably know him. I believe he's actually like Elton John and Paul McCartney. I could be mistaken about this. I'm not 100% sure, but his name is Rod Stewart, and I believe he might be Sir Rod Stewart, but I'm not quite sure. Just because I said that, it's probably the opposite. I know Paul McCartney and Elton John are. I don't know if they did that with Rod Stewart, but that's beside the point. Now, he has a lot of good songs, especially his first album. by himself. He was part of Faces, and that was a band, and a song you probably know by Faces is Stay With Me. And then he went off as his own and just went under his own name, Rod Stewart. And the album is Every Picture Tells a Story. And you definitely have heard at least one song off this, Maggie May. That's a very good song. Overplayed, but rightfully so. It is a very good song. And actually, it's one of those songs that if you think about it and actually listen to it, it has a lot of meaning. Mandolin Wind, also a good song. Not personally one of my favorites, but I do appreciate the music. Now, later on, he kind of fell into the same trap as Genesis, where it just became, your 80s pop rock kind of thing, borderline new wave. But it was still good. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it wasn't quite. I don't know. I feel like his earlier stuff was a lot more raw sounding, a lot more honest. It wasn't that. It was his feelings or a storytelling. Listen to Bob Dylan. We're gonna play some Bob Dylan soon. I actually have a song in mind for Bob Dylan. But his earlier stuff tells stories. Each song is its own story. It's not like a concept album where every song tells a mini story to say one thing, like to tell like bits of a big story. And we'll also get back to the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album by Black Sabbath, because that is, I would count that as a concept album as well, because each song individually you can take as a small, like, it's like reading a comic book, or playing a video game like Call of Duty, where you can get little pieces of it, and like each little piece tells its own little story, but in the grand scheme of things, it all flows together. And the songs are written and about a certain thing and put in a certain order to tell a story. This is not one of those, but Rod Stewart is more like Bob Dylan, where each song is its own story, and generally tend to be a little more detailed. Here's Every Picture Tells a Story.
Paris was a place you could hide away.
right out east, yeah. Listen, on the Peking ferry, I was feeling merry. Sailing on my way back here, I fell in love with a slit-eyed lady. By the light of an eastern moon, Shanghai Lil never used the pill. She claimed that it just ain't natural. She took me up on deck and bit my neck. Oh, people, I was glad I found her. Oh, just I was glad I found her. Wait a minute. I firmly believe that I didn't need anyone but me. I sincerely thought I was so complete. Look how wrong it can be. The women I've known I wouldn't let tie my shoe. They wouldn't give you the time of day. But the slit-eyed lady knocked me off my feet. God, I was glad I found her. And if there were words I could tell to you, to help you on the way down the road, I couldn't quote you no Dickens or Shelley or Keats. 'Cause it's all been said before. Make the best out of a bad joke, laugh it off. Ha! You didn't have to come here anyway. So remember, every picture tells a story, don't it? 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 Every picture tells a story, don't it?
Alright, so I'm gonna end this song a little early, because the next 20 seconds, almost 30 seconds, are basically the same as you just heard. Basically, it's a very good song. It's basically about, it's a first-person narrative. It's written in that style, and the singer, aka Rod Stewart, ends up going on adventures with girls from all over the world. And this song actually, even though it was released in 1971, he got a lot of negative opinions about the song, because that was when people were starting to be more offended by things. And the fact that, I'm going to read the lyric right here, I fell in love with a slant-eyed lady. He's referring to an Asian woman as a slant-eyed lady. And, you know, people even back then we had snowflakes back then. And they got, you know, offended by that line, and that the song seemed sexist, and but overall, it's kind of a rude and crude song, but I feel like that's what made it so good. It's nothing like the music they churn out now, if you even want to call that music, especially after that abomination we ended up playing the other night that a viewer suggested. Holy shit, that was. Sorry, that was ear rape. No, that wasn't ear rape. That was ear murder. Emotional Rescue by the Rolling Stones is ear rape. That song was ear murder, because that's just terrible. And no, we're not going to play Emotional Rescue. Trust me, I'm doing you a favor by not playing that thing. So, now we're going to move on to another artist from the same time. This one was released in 1975. By the name of Bob Dylan. And the thing with Bob Dylan is his songs are not just songs; they're little stories, just like Rod Stewart's songs, early songs were too. And that's where I'm tying this in with these two. Is they both had a similar genre where they wrote more of a folk rock, and they told little stories in each songs. And if you listen to the songs, the more and more you listen to them, the more and more they have meaning. And this song is a song I don't hear on the radio a lot. Every once in a while they play it. Yeah, it's called "Tangled Up in Blue," and basically, this song is really the song that got me into Bob Dylan. I remember it. It came off the Blood on the Tracks album, which already has a great sound to it. But we'll play the song and then I'll discuss it a little bit.
Early one morning the sun was shining, I was laying in bed, wondering if she changed it all, if her hair was still red. Her folks, they said our lives together sure was gonna be rough. They never did like Mama's homemade dress, Papa's bank book wasn't big enough. And I was standing on the side of the road, rain falling on my shoes, heading out for the East Coast. Lord knows I paid some dues getting through, tangled up in blue. She was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. I helped her out of a jam, I guess, but I used a little too much force. We drove that car as far as we could, abandoned it out west. Split up on the docks at night, both agreeing it was best. And she turned around to look at me as I was walking away. I heard her say over my shoulder, we'll meet again someday on the avenue, tangled up in blue. I had a job in the great North Woods, working as a cook for a spell, but I never did like it all that much, and one day the axe just fell. So I drifted down to New Orleans, where lucky with a be employed, working for a while on a fishing boat right outside of Delacroix. But all the while I was alone, the past was close behind. I seen a lot of women, but she never escaped my mind, and I just grew tangled up in blue. She was working in a topless place, and I stopped in for a beer. I just kept looking at the side of her face in the spotlight so clear. And later on, when the crowd thinned out, I was just about to do the same. She was standing there in back of my chair. I said, Timmy, don't I know your name? I muttered something underneath my breath. She studied the lines on my face. I must admit, felt a little uneasy when she bent down to tie the laces of my shoes, tangled up in blue. She lit a burner on the stove and offered me a pipe. I thought you'd never say hello, she said, you look like a silent type. And she opened up a book of poems and handed it to me, written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. And every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal, pouring off of every page like it was written in my soul. But me to you, tangled up in blue. I lived with him on Montague Street, the basement down the stairs. There was music in the cafes at night and revolution in the air. Then he started in the
dealing with slaves and something inside of them died. She had to sell everything she owned and was froze up inside. And when it finally, the bottom fell out, I became withdrawn. The only thing I knew how to do was to keep on keeping on like a bird that flew, tangled up in blue. So now I'm going back again. I got to get to her somehow. All the people we used to know, they're an illusion to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how it all got started. I don't know what they're doing with their lives. But me, I'm still on the road, heading for another joint. We always did feel the same, we just saw it from a different point of view. Tangled up in blue.
Okay, that was Tangled Up in Blue by Bob Dylan, and one of the reasons I really like that song is because it's written in a way that it has a time period. I can also think of another song that's written in a similar way, Memory Motel by the Rolling Stones. Similar song. It takes place over a long period of time, and a bunch of little mini stories inside of one song create one. It's almost like a book. There's each chapter. Each chapter adds a little part to the grand scheme, the main story. But there's all these little side stories, and that song is one of those songs. Memory Motel by the Rolling Stones is also like that. We'll play that in a little bit. And the other thing I just want to mention is, okay, I have this thing, and it's a head scratcher. And basically what it is, it looks like a whisk. If you know what a whisk is, you better know what a fucking whisk is. But I've met people that don't know what a whisk or a funnel is. So this is, say it's a beer funnel, they automatically know what it is. But yeah, this thing is awesome. Especially if you're stressed or something, or you wear a hat a lot like I do. You scratch your head with this thing. It's like an orgasm for your head. It's fucking awesome. I love this thing. I use it all the time. So anyway, yeah, so now we're gonna go to another song. This song isn't quite as meaningful, but it's almost sad because it's basically about a social outcast that ends up getting himself into watching a TV show, and he gets himself so familiarized where he almost feels like he's actually friends with a character on the TV show, and he feels like that's his best friend and the one person you really relate to. But it's a character on a show. It might not even be a real person. It could be it might be a fucking cartoon. It's not even an actor. It's a cartoon. It could be anyone. It could be fucking Tom and Jerry. It could be Homer Simpson. It could be Peter Griffin. It could be Al Bundy. It could be any of these people. It could be just some random person. It could be fucking Bugs Bunny. I don't know. But the Pink Panther. But this is, when you really listen to this song, it sounds like such a happy song, but it's really not so much happy as it's kind of sad, because this guy, the narrator in the song, is in this depressed state, and he's basically only relating to one person, and that's a character on a TV show. We're going to play that song right now. Alright, that was Turn It On Again by Genesis, and that came off their Duke album, which I also believe is a good album. That song could be interpreted a couple ways as Phil Collins being lonely and missing his wife and his family and his friends from because he was touring so much. Or it could also be interpreted as, because that song was written during his his divorce, and it could be interpreted in the sense that depression, kind of psychotic thoughts, where you become antisocial to the real world and you get yourself in this trance where you only want to be part of, like, say, for me, say if it was me, I'd be like obsessed with this one person that I can relate to on a TV show. And for me, I feel like that person would be Al Bundy, because I feel like that's the way I'm going to be when I have a family. You know, wife takes all my money, kids take all my money, work all day, half the night, have no life, have my and then when all the shit hits the fan, both literally and metaphorically, depending on how my kids act, you know, I could be, you know, I might have friends, but, you know, people have lives. It could be taken as the guy is depressed, the narrator in the song is depressed. I don't like to use the narrator as saying, like, Phil Collins or Ozzy or whoever's singing, because it might not be about them. A lot of times it's not. But it could be a case of the narrator of the song is depressed and in this depressed state that he can only relate to people on a TV show. And he almost looks at them as friends or even family. You know, maybe he likes this girl on the show, or maybe he looks at this one guy as like a friend or like almost a brother. It does happen. I have met people that have been through shit and they relate to a character on a TV show. But here's the thing: that character isn't real. Yeah, if it's like a sitcom or something like Married with Children, they're real people, but that's not their personalities. Maybe it shows through a little bit their personalities, but it's not how they really act. Scripted. Or if it's a show like The Simpsons or Family Guy, the only way they're a real person is that a real person is talking, but they're a drawing or an animation. So that's the way it is, and it's very sad. That song, it sounds like such a happy, upbeat song, but when you really think about what it could very well be about, it's very sad actually, because shit like that happens in the real world, and you know, I can understand how shit like that can happen, but it just sounds like an upbeat, happy song, and you think about it, the guy could be depressed. He never does it. He only watches this one show, and he only really relates with this one character on the one show. He looks at him as like his best friend, and he starts getting emotional attachment to that character. But let's face it, it's not real. Now here's another song. Basically, this song is on the Deep Purple Machine Head album, and you've heard a song off of this, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Smoke on the Water is one of the songs, and that was actually my favorite song when I was a kid. And you know, I gotta say, you know, it's overplayed, might not be the best song in the world. That is probably still my number one favorite song. It has been since I was about 3 years old. And that, and then War Pigs is number 2. And then number 3, I'd say, is I Can't Kill Rock and Roll by Ozzy. And then number 4, I would say, is probably probably the song I just played, Turn It On Again by Genesis. And then number 5, I haven't gotten that. Probably Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And those 5 jump around. The first 2 stay the same. The other 3 jump around, but they're always on number 5. It depends on what I feel like listening to. So we're gonna play Highway Star by Deep Purple. Okay, that's another one of those songs that isn't what it sounds like it is. Just listening to the song, it would sound like Ian Gillan, singer of Deep Purple, would it sounds like he would be singing about a car. Maybe a fast car. Maybe say he had a muscle car back in the day when he wrote this, a Mustang, Camaro, Plymouth Barracuda, a Roadrunner, anything like that. And this is a similar deal as with Trampled Underfoot by Led Zeppelin, where the song isn't really about the car. It's about a girl. And he uses the car and he describes a car, basically, but he's alluding to describing a girl that he likes or has a relationship with or whatever. Trampled Underfoot by Led Zeppelin's also an example of this, where he quotes, about the power steering, factory AC, let me fix your overdrive. That is basically, he's alluding to using terms that you'd use to describe a car, to describe a girl, and that's not very uncommon. And it's a very good way to do it, I guess, because it sounds innocent, and then you really think about it, and it's like, oh no, it's not what it sounds like. And it might be more obvious to some people, but some people would just think he's describing a car, and because some people live under a rock, like I've said. And now this next song is another one of my all-time favorites. This is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Lucky Man. And this song came off the debut album, which is a self-titled album named Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And the song was basically written as a time filler, similar to how Paranoid by Black Sabbath became a time filler that became very famous. This one's the same deal. This song was actually written by Greg Lake when he was 12 years old, when his mother got him a guitar, and he learned how to play certain chords: D, A minor, E minor, and G. And he wrote an acoustic version of the song when he was a kid, and the producer's like, we need one more song. And he's like, well, I have a song that I wrote years ago when I was very young, and the band didn't like it, but they feel like it would have worked, and it actually became one of their most known songs. And later on, Emerson, Lake and Palmer started writing things like Carnival 9 off, I believe. Let me double check. I think it's a weird title. Brain Salad Surgery. That was that album. But this is off their self-titled debut album, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And here's Lucky Man. 1 second.
He had white horses and ladies by the score, all dressed in satin and waiting by the door. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. White lace and feathers, they made up his bed. A gold-covered mattress on which he was led. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
He went to fight wars for his country and his king, of his honor and his glory. The people would sing. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. A bullet had found him. His blood ran as he cried. No money could save him, so he lay down and he died. Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
Okay, we cut off the last couple seconds of that song, but it's a very good song. That song is also one of the first songs. Actually, I believe it was the first song that used that. I forgot what the actual synthesizer was, but it was a certain type of synthesizer that was fairly new at the time, and it was the first song that actually used it. And that at the end you could hear it. Now this next song, a bit of a backstory with this. August 2016, my grandma was very sick, and about 4 or 5 days before she died, that I first heard this song. And now, this song, usually songs don't hit me that much. I'll get some emotions from them, but this song made me cry, which is a fucking problem because I was trying to drive my car in rush hour traffic during the summer when they're all out with their fucking summer brains going, oh my god, I gotta go to the fucking, gotta come home from the shore, and yeah. I'm like, oh my god, the Karens are out with their fucking 30 kids because they spent the day fucking sunbathing and now they all have raisin brains. So, yeah, this song is, I don't particularly like Coldplay. A couple other songs I like, I don't really like Coldplay that much. I generally find them whiny and annoying. But this one song, I can only think of two songs. I can think of a few songs that would evoke this kind of emotion out of me, and this is one of them. And another, it's "The Scientist" by Coldplay. And only two of my friends have ever seen me cry, and they each did it through putting the wrong song on at the wrong time, and that's what happens. And both times I was trying to drive. And the other song I'm not going to play, but it's a country song. It's called 5 More Minutes by Scotty McCreery. They're not going to play that one. Maybe we will. I don't know. Let's see where this goes. But, oh, there's my doggy. Hi, Brutus. You're a good boy. Yeah, this song, I pretty much, it hit me, and now to this day I still feel like I was I was in that exact place. I remember exactly where I was when it hit me the first time I heard the song, and I feel like I'm right there again. The same person in the car, driving the same car, going the same way, the same conditions. It was unusually cool in August that night. It was very hot and disgusting during the day, but it was only about 70 degrees and very, very clear that night. Very pretty day, or very pretty night. That day was awful though. Yeah, here it is.
Come up to meet you, tell you I'm sorry. You don't know how lovely you are. I had to find you, tell you I need you, tell you I set you apart. Tell me your secrets and ask me your questions. Now let's go back to the start. Running in circles, coming in tails, heads on the sides apart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be this hard. Oh, take me back to the start. I was just guessing at numbers and figures, pulling your puzzles apart. Questions of science, science and progress did not speak as loud as my heart. But tell me you love me, come back and haunt me. Oh, when I rush to the start, running in circles, chasing tails, coming back as we are. Nobody said it was easy. Oh, it's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be so hard. I'm going back to the start. Oh,
Okay, that song is a very good. It has a lot of meaning to me. Like I said, I don't generally like Coldplay. I don't generally like Coldplay very much. I generally find it annoying and whiny, and I'm really and sorry about that. We're having technical difficulties because computers don't like to listen. So yeah, this next song is a song I used to like when I was a young kid as well. And I still love it to this day. And I always used to be confused by the title of it. It made no sense to me. And then I started to listen to it, and I started to interpret the lyrics more. And I'll go over what I got from it after it plays. So here's a Rainbow in the Dark by Dio.
Free and I see that it's me.
Okay, so that song, think about it. It's impossible to have a rainbow without sunlight. And to have darkness, there's no sunlight. So therefore, it cannot exist. Um, so that's the part of the song when I was younger. I never understood why that was titled like that, because I always knew, like, you can't have a rainbow without, in the dark, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. It's physically not a thing. Because all the rainbow is light refracting through water vapor in the air, basically becoming like a giant prism. And when you shine a light through a prism, you get a rainbow. That's all rainbow is. There's no fucking leprechaun of a pot of gold at the end or whatever. Hate to break it to you if you've been living under a rock. But once again, reality set in pretty hard with that one. I know. I'm sorry. Burst your bubble. Now, this song, now that I'm older and I've been through a lot of shit, I can understand that, you know, I can understand the meaning of why this song even exists. Basically, Dio wrote. I don't want to use him as the narrator of the song. I want to say he wrote it about the person from that person's point of view. Something happened. Maybe he got rejected by somebody that he liked, or maybe there was something with a relationship, I'd imagine, or somehow he's left on his own and he's lonely. And the line "Dear demons, do they ever let you go?" Those are that person's own thoughts in their head that are always there. Now, I don't want to get dark with this, but I have those too. Everybody does. Everybody has things that peck at them, like a little fucking woodpecker pecking and pecking at a tree. And, you know, a little bit here and there doesn't make a difference, but over time, it does some damage. And everyone has them. I have quite a few of them. And this song I can relate to in the sense that once I'm in a position where there's shit I really can't say, there's shit I really can't change at all, and they peck at me, those little things peck at me, and any one of them wouldn't be a big deal, but when you get, you know, a bunch of them together, it's almost like you have a beaver dam or you have a drain in your house. We'll use that one instead. You get a little bit of hair down there and it gets caught on, you know, the inside of the pipe somewhere. You know, one or two little hairs isn't going to make any difference. You're not going to notice any difference in water flow. But then they start collecting shit on them, and more hair binds up, and more hair binds up, and over time it clogs up. Or, you know, you could use the analogy of a fan. It gets dirty, a little bit of dust on it doesn't affect it, but over time, once you know, say pet hair and dust starts to clog it up, it doesn't move any air anymore. That's how it is. The demons, you get one or two of them, okay, whatever. You get a bunch of them, and you get into this mental state where everything is dark and cynical. It is unfortunately a very true thing. Now, I can't say that, you know, everybody has them. Everyone has them. But it is what it is. It really is. There's nothing. Sometimes you can't change things. Sometimes you're afraid to change things. Here's a little life lesson here for you. If you have something that you want to say, regardless of what it is, you got to outweigh a couple things. You got to think, say you like a person, or we'll go off that because I feel like that's the most common one and the most easy to understand. Maybe they have the same feelings back for you. You never know. You never know until you ask. And maybe the other person's in the same boat as you, where they're thinking, oh, I want to ask the other person. In this case, that other person is you. And they want to, you know, they would be happy to be in a relationship with you, or at least, you know, start talking more and see where things go. But, you know, neither one of you really has the balls to do it because you're afraid because say you're friends or something, and you're afraid that what if it goes wrong? Is it going to ruin a delicate balance? But here's the thing with that: if you're friends with somebody and you're good friends with them, that shouldn't make a difference. It shouldn't. It might be a little weird, but if you're truly friends with them, it's not gonna make or break it. And if it does, they weren't really your friend. And that's one of those things where it's very. I've been in that position many times, and I know it's very common. And it is what it is. Take your chance. That's the way I see it. Don't be like me and pussy out, because then you'll really never know. And then when that other person gets with someone, it will kill you every day. Every minute of every day, you will think of it. It's not something you can just put in your head and make it go away. You might be able to deal with it. I'm in that position. Some days it doesn't bother me at all. Other days it brings me to the point where I don't even want to get out of bed. I force myself to do shit. And that's very common. I know a lot of people have been in that position, and it will continue to happen as long as life is the way it is. As long as humans exist, that's how it is. And it's not very easy, but sometimes it's easier just to get it out of the air than it is to bottle up those feelings for a very long time. And if you do it for months or years even, and knowing that there's always that possibility that maybe it'll work out in your favor, but you're too afraid of what will happen. Trust me, if they're really your friend, we're gonna go off that view. If they're really your friend, it won't change anything long term. Now, getting off that topic, shipwrecks are always a good thing to hear about. They're always something that brings much attention to the media, and people. Let's face it, bad news travels fast. If you see something on the news that people don't. If somebody doesn't die or get hurt, or there isn't some kind of tragedy, people aren't going to be quick to watch it. If they say, "Oh, this person did this nice thing," people are like, "Okay, great," and then they're going to not give a shit generally. But if they're like, "Oh, there's a fucking ship that sank, it took out 100 people," oh well, that's going to bring a lot of attention to that for a very long time. Here's a song about it's a true story.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a crew and good captain well seasoned, concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling? The wind in the wires made a tattletale sound, and the wave broke over the railing. And every man knew, as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of November come stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast had to wait when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was freezing rain in the face of a hurricane west wind. time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway caved in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know ya. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. Later that night, when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? The searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up or they might have capsized. They may have groped deep and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters. Lake Huron rolls Superior sings in the rooms of her ice water mansion. Old Michigan steams like a young man's dreams. The islands and bays are for sportsmen. And farther below, Lake Ontario takes in what Lake Erie can send her. And the iron boats go, as the mariners all know, with the gales of November remembered. In a musty old hall in Detroit they prayed in the Maritime Sailors' Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. Superior, they said, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early.
Okay, that song was the record Gerald by Gordon Lightfoot. That song was actually written about a year after it actually happened. There are some historic inaccuracies in the song, but generally it pretty well tells the story of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald that sank on November 10th, 1975 on Lake Superior. That's basically what it is. There's some historic inaccuracies of a couple minor things, but generally, all in all, the song is pretty well dead on. And also, there's a couple lyrics that he actually changed once they were performing it live, once they discovered more about what actually happened. It wasn't fully the crew that was at fault. it was actually an equipment failure on the ship that also helped sink it. Now, that happened in 1975. I'm going to go back a few years to 1968, height of the Cold War, height of the hippie era. Going back to the Beatles, also off the White Album. We're going to go into a song about the Cold War and about the USSR, and they basically described a lot in this very short, almost 3 minute song about the USSR, and then we're going to go on to another song about nuclear fallout. Stay tuned.
In the USSR, been away so long I hardly knew the place. Gee, it's good to be back home. Leave it till tomorrow to unpack my case. Honey, disconnect the phone. I'm back in the USSR. You don't know how lucky you are, boy. Back in the US, back in the US, back in the USSR. The great girls really knock me out. They leave the West behind. And Moscow girls make me sing and shout. That Georgia's always on my mind. Oh, come on! Hey, I'm back in the USSR. In the USSR. Well, the Ukraine girls really knock me out. They leave the West behind. And Moscow girls make me sing and shout. That Georgia's always on my mind. Oh, show me round the snow big mountains way down south. Take me to your daddy's farm. Let me hear your ballad like it's ringing out. Come and keep your comrade warm. I'm back in the USSR. Hey, you don't know how lucky you are, boys. Back in the USSR. Oh, let me tell you, honey. Hey, I'm back.
Okay, so that song was back in the USSR, if you couldn't tell, by the Beatles off the White Album, released in 1968. Basically, the song was perceived by Americans as well as a few other people in other countries, mostly Europe, promoting the Soviet Union, and especially Americans, because at the time, the two superpowers in the world, the USSR and the USA, were in the middle of the Cold War. That was the height of it. That was pretty much, the 60s was really the scariest time of that. There was always that thought of, shit, if either one of us does anything wrong, they're gonna fucking the other side's gonna send fucking nukes over. And then, basically, it was mutually assured destruction, where one side would start something, then the other side would finish it, and it'd pretty much wipe out pretty much the whole Earth, and everything alive on it, because the amount of nuclear weapons at the time they both had, it was enough to pretty well Armageddon. It could have caused Armageddon, and people lived in constant fear of that. It wasn't a corona apocalypse, but it was worse. This is actually, oh shit, at any time it could be the end. So people grew up in that time, especially worried about, oh shit, what is the USSR going to do? And then they had Cuba on their side, and Cuba's really damn close to the USA, and it's like, oh shit, now they have nukes at Cuba. It was not a great time to be. You know, people lived with it. People weren't pussies back then. It was not an easy time to live through. And then now this next song is a newer Ozzy song. It's a strange song, kind of depressing. It's from 2007. It's called Black Rain. This song is about nuclear fallout and living in the aftermath of basically after the world got nuked and living in a nuclear fallout wasteland and what's left. Because generally when that happens, when it rains, because it does rain after it happens from all the shit going in the atmosphere, the water coming out of the sky is black because of all the soot and all the debris in the air. So here's a strange one.
Black rain is falling, contaminating the ground. The human race is dying. The dirt are scattered around. What is the price of a bullet? Another hole in the head. A black draped over a coffin. Another soldier is dead. How many victims have fallen? How many more have to die? People dying in their sins. Angel of death standing by. We've got our marching orders, defenders of our home and our pride. We've crossed too many borders, military suicide. War, killing sons and daughters. Another failed attack, there is no turning back. Blood running down like water. You think you gotta wait until the judgment day comes. Politicians confuse me. I watch the body count rise. Why are the children all marching into the desert to die? The human psyche is twisted. The madness rising again. Another empire falling. I watch them dying in vain. We've got our marching orders, defenders of our home and our pride.
Okay, so that song is one of those songs that can be interpreted one of two ways. I was also looking more into it. There are people that interpret it as nuclear fallout. There's also thinking about, and there's really no say exactly how, like, what it was written about. So it's one of those songs that has pretty much one of two meanings. The other thing is it was written in 2007. Or actually, I believe it was written in 2006 and recorded in 07. And the song was also about, also could have been about the oil war in Iraq. And if you think about it, that does also make sense, because the children marching and going into the desert to die, that does make sense. There is also the where it refers to the black rain, that also could be contamination from the oil, burning and going up into the atmosphere, the soot from that, and coming back down, making the precipitation black. So there is one of two ways to describe that, and the fact that the line "blood running down like water" also describes a either post-apocalyptic world where many people are dead, or possibly from all the soldiers that died over oil. Also, the other thing is the line, "What is the price of a bullet?" That could be taken one of two ways, depending on which way you look at this. If you're looking at the Iraq war shit, you're looking at how you get, what does the bullet cost? One bullet cost all of the Americans that are paying for that one bullet to shoot somebody in Iraq over oil. Also, what is the cost of use? There's actually three ways I'm going to describe this. What is the cost of that bullet on the other person? Gets hit in the head with a bullet, it costs him his life. Also, the post-apocalyptic scenario after nuclear fallout, there is the option that, that one bullet, how hard is it going to be to obtain a bullet, one single bullet, considering everything is not being produced anymore? There's only a certain amount of everything left. And do you really want to use that bullet if you have to defend yourself against other people? So that is one of those songs that there's really not one set definition what the song's about. It could be about two things. Here's the other thing. That song is very gloomy. So we're going to play something that's a little, also Black Sabbath, or is actually Black Sabbath, not just Ozzy solo, from 1974 or 1973, from my favorite album, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Now, this is the second to last track. There's 8 tracks on this album, running a total of about 42 minutes. Not a very long album, but long enough. Very meaningful album. And this one song I'm just going to pick off. It's called "Looking for Today," and I'm going to explain what the song means later after the song's over.
Second hand, it's been heard before you even play.
Okay, so that was Looking For Today by Black Sabbath off the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album. That song is... It's kind of a strange song, but at the time, it was, even back then, the same thing applies as now. It's basically about becoming almost impossible to stay up to date with anything, because even back in the 60s and 70s, technology was advancing quickly, very quickly, leaps and bounds ahead of the decades before it. It all started in the late 50s when the transistor became a thing, and they stopped using vacuum tubes, and it became affordable to mass produce them cheaply and make them very small. And computers were starting to become a thing back then, where they weren't these huge, out of control, overcomplicated mechanical things. They were able to use what was called something. It was some type of memory. I forgot exactly what it was called, but they had a few different types of early memory that could hold 1 byte of data, not a kilobyte, not a megabyte, not a gigabyte, 1 byte. And basically, one was a delay line memory, and all it was it'd have a little coil on one side, a long wire that was under tension, and then another coil on the other side, and one coil would switch. It would send twist the wire a little bit. It would go through the wire. It'd get to the other side, where the other coil is a pickup coil. It would turn, move a magnet past the coil that would energize a transistor, which would turn on power for a second to the drive coil, and it would just go through. And these delay line memories were expensive to use, but they were used by all different countries. The Soviet Union used them. The USA used them. England had them. They were all used by different places in early computers, and they were used up through the 60s and 70s. Basically, it was mechanical memory. Then they had other forms of this. They had something core memory, which used a magnetic copper wire that ran through a ferrous bead, and it would induce a current on that bead, and it would keep it alive. It was not. It was basically It was not like an EEPROM chip or anything. It was purely mechanical, and then use basic physics to work. It did work, and each one little coil or one little ferrous bead would hold 1 byte of data, and these things would be huge. These huge, complicated, things that were a foot across, that were just coils and these little induction coils, and they would hold memory. They would hold memory indefinitely until the power was switched off. Then it would lose everything. Same thing with the delay line. But yeah, that technology was advancing, and then a couple years later, they stopped using mechanical memory and started using silicon chips, which are basically nothing more than transistors, many transistors, and they use the same principles. They work the same way, but they're solid state. So basically, with that said, that song is about how technology advances leaps and bounds, and it's very hard to stay ahead of it. And when he said "Looking For Today" is the title of the song, and the lyric in the song, he means that he's stuck in yesterday, which could have only been literally the day before. Even back then, literally the day before. And unless you had the money and the access to more modern technology, you were kind of behind. And he was just trying to figure out, the narrator of the song was trying to figure out, why things have to advance so much in leaps and bounds, and why it's so hard to obtain new technology. And he understands that it's expensive, but only the people higher up get it first, and then once it gets cheaper and becomes mass produced for an affordable price, then people that aren't as rich and wealthy can obtain it, but by then it's already outdated. So he's basically saying that applies to electronics, that applies to cars, that applies to media, that applies to anything. Media formats, records, cassette tapes, CDs, CDs weren't around back then, but cassette tapes were, 8-tracks, all these things were around back then, and they were slowly being phased out. Beta, the videotape beta was out. VHS, I'm not sure if that was out yet, but I have a feeling they were working on it at least by then. So he was just trying to explain that frustrating. And the advancement of technology is faster than any one person can keep up with. And it's very hard to keep up with it, even if you try. Now we're going to play another song. This is a very good song, also in my top list of songs. Well, the last song I just played is on my top list of songs. This is Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel.
Climbing up on Salisbury
Alright, that was Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel. And that song was about... It can be taken... It's another one of those songs that can be taken a lot of ways. I personally think, and I've actually researched this a bit, and a lot of people agree, that the song is about... It was written 2 years after he left Genesis, and because he basically had a little hissy fit and left Genesis, and he was kind of an asshole. Writes good music, but he's kind of an asshole. At least he was back then. Or he became an asshole. He became very, basically when he was part of Genesis, at first he was fine. Then after the fame kicked in and got to his brain, he basically looked at it like, oh, guess what? I'm really Genesis, and they're coming to see me, and then you guys are just tagging along, playing your instruments, but they're really coming to see Peter Gabriel, because he used to go up on the stage and put on a whole show by himself, and the rest of the band would start getting irritated with this because he'd be taking all the attention and basically treating them like, they don't matter, and they're just kind of riding along with him, which is not true. And Genesis proved that, because once he left, the drummer, Phil Collins, became the lead singer, and he became honestly, everybody knows Phil Collins, Genesis. I'm not going to say one's better or worse. The Peter Gabriel was a little more deeper. There's a little more deep meanings behind it. It was a little more dark sound, too. That song is a very nice song, but, it wasn't really... that wasn't the style. The style of Peter Gabriel's Genesis was more like The Lamb Lies Down Broadway. I'm not going to talk about his early stuff from Genesis to Revelation, because he was young. He wasn't even 20 years old when he wrote that and produced that. He was 17. So, oh my god. So, anyway, our next song will be probably one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs. I'm going to play this, and I've always liked the song, and I really fell in love with it. Spring of 2014. It's from their Coda album, which was released in 1982. No, this is just the. It came from. It was a little earlier. I forgot what the actual album was, but the Coda album was one of those albums that they think is one of those compilation albums where they put on a lot of their songs. A lot of their more famous songs. I could be wrong, but I believe John Bonham was dead by then. Let me double check. Let me fact check. That's what we do here at Bruno FM. We want to give you the right fucking information, because I don't want to sound like a complete retard. And you people don't know what you're doing. Yeah, okay, yeah. It was a B-side of the Immigrant Song in 1970. I knew it was earlier. John Bonham, I believe, died in 1980. Here's Hey Hey, What Can I Do?
Wanna tell you about the girl I love. My, she looks so fine. She's the only one that I've been dreaming of. Maybe someday she will be all mine. I wanna tell her that I love her so. I thrill with her every touch. I need to tell her she's the only one I really love. I got a warm, warm ball all day. I got a warm and she won't be true. I got a woman stay drunk all the time. I said I got a little woman and she won't be true. On Sunday morning when we go down to church, see the men folks standing in line. Don't say they come to pray to the Lord, not when my little girl looks so fine. And in the evening when the sun is sinking low, everybody's with the one they love. I Walk the town, keep on searching all around, looking for my street corner girl. I got a warm ball all day. I got a warm, she won't be true, no, no. I got a warm, stay drunk all the time. I said I got a little woman and she won't be true. I'm in the bars with the men who play guitar, sitting and drinking and remembering the time. My little lover does a midnight shift. She falls around all the time. I guess it's just one thing left for me to do. Gonna pack my bags and move on my way. 'Cause I got a worried mind, sharing what I thought was mine. Gonna leave her with the guitars play. I got a woman, she won't be true, no, no. I got a woman, ball all day, yeah, yeah. Now. I got a woman, stay drunk all the time. I got a little woman and she won't be true. I said she won't be true, no. Yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no.
Okay, that was Hey Hey What Kind of by Led Zeppelin. Now that song's one of those song to be interpreted in a bunch of ways. Basically, by the way they're describing it, it sounds like a hooker. It sounds like it's a hooker that he has feelings for. Basically, what the actual story is, not too far off, but not quite right. He says it's a girl. He has feelings for her, but she's not a slut. She's not a hooker. She's not an escort. She's not a fucking. She's just. Well, she is a slut. She wants to, hook up with him, sleep with him on a regular basis. Basically, a friends with benefits kind of deal. But she doesn't want to be tied down. She doesn't want to have a ship or anything more serious. She just wants sex. And he is becoming. Robert Plant is starting to feel. Oh, I don't want to say his name. So the narrator of the song, because I say it's definitely about him. Could have been written, could be a fictional thing. The narrator, assuming it's a he, because it's the 70s, I don't think any of that gay shit would have gone anywhere back then. The lesbians are hot when they fuck each other. Beside the point. We're getting off track here. So he's using calling her a street corner girl, and midnight shift, and as derogatory terms, because he's getting fed up with her, because maybe she said at one point, hey, maybe I want more, maybe I want, or whatever, get in a relationship, maybe go further, who knows, see how things turn out. And maybe she's just basically going, I don't have feelings for you any more than friends with benefits, or just plain old hookup. And, by him saying this I feel like is obvious, but maybe not, because you've been living under your rock. I go to a woman on a ball all day. He wants to fuck the shit out of her all day, in case you've been living under a rock. I go to a woman won't be true, no. That means that she's kind of playing mind games with him. She won't really tell him anything, give him a definite answer on anything besides, yes, I want sex. I got a woman stay drunk all the time. She's a fucking alcoholic too. Maybe she's not a full-on hooker, but she's been around the block more times than a New York City convict cab. Ugh. And then the lawyer gonna pack my bags and move on my way. Maybe he's done. Maybe he's done with her and he's done with playing these mind games and he finds somebody that's actually serious. And that kind of ties into what I was saying before. Yeah, those kind of relationships are good, but let's face it. If you have somebody that just wants to hook up all the time, that might be fun for both of you, but don't expect anything good out of that long term because 9 times out of 10, it's not going to become a good, solid relationship. It does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I am saying that if the girl is that quick to hook up with you, just over anything, is she really going to be loyal to you? No, she just wants your fucking dick. Face it. Know those types. 9 times out of 10. I'm not saying all of them are like that. My experience. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. I've had a couple of those. They're not keepers, if you know what I mean. Not worth keeping. You might get lucky. You might find one that has some weird moral system in their head that maybe they want to fuck you before they date you and see it. And then again, she's basically going off of how you are. She's not really going off of you as a person. Maybe eventually they start to develop feelings, and that's a different story. But it's just not 9 times out of 10. It's not a good way to start a relationship, especially if you want to, maybe date them for a while and even fucking settle down, get married, and fucking pump some kids into her and watch them pop out and then ruin your life later. Because that's basically what happens. Let's face it. I don't know anybody that wants to have kids. And all the only people I know that really want kids are the girls I know. Yeah, the way I look at it is, if I have a kid, that would be kind of cool. But at the same time, at this point in my life, I'm not nearly ready for it because I'm just not. I'd rather have a dog. I can pet my dog and people won't be looking at me weird, and you pet my kid and people are gonna be looking at me weird. I have a dog, and it, it's cute. I don't find most kids cute. Some kids I will admit, I have found cute. So give me a fucking puppy. Show me a picture of a fucking lab puppy or like a cattle dog puppy or, a little bulldog or something. I'm like, oh my god, it's so fucking cute. Or a German Shepherd with the floppy ears that aren't standing up yet. Or those little pit bull puppies that look like a little sumo wrestler. They're fucking cute. And then you get a kid. It's like, oh, look at that. Oh, it just puked on itself. Take it away. Kids are cute to me if I can take it, and when it makes a messy and it's diaper, I can give it back. I don't want to deal with that. Puppy's a different story. Puppy becomes your companion. Puppy will become your best friend. It will want to be with you. That kid's just gonna suck your bank account dry, and then it's gonna fucking have a fit and leave at one point. So, face it. Unless you're most guys I know at least don't really want to have kids, and if they do, it's not for a very long time. Like I said, I wouldn't mind having a kid, but there's a lot to think about with that. And right now, if I'm going to be honest, if I had a kid right now, I would feel like my life is over. I'd want to fucking self-quarantine myself in my fucking room for the rest of my life until that thing fucking grows up and leaves. Because I'd be like, oh shit, what did I do? Oops. So basically, the moral of the story is a few life lessons with this. And I've gotten a little more drunk than I was before, so I'm just kind of babbling on now and trying not to giggle for no reason. Sorry about that. This isn't a fucking professional environment. This isn't a professional thing. This is Bruno Fm. This is the best you get. Lucky you get this shit. Moral of the story of the night is, if you think you like someone or you like someone, don't be me. I'm going to be a complete hypocrite here. I've been in this boat for years. Eventually, I'll change it. I've written things down. I have a special little book that I've written all my dark shit in. If somebody were to find that, I'd be doomed. I'd have to go under my rock and never come out again. So don't be a pussy. If you like someone, just say it. And if you're friends with them already, what's the worst that happens? If they're really your friend, it's not gonna have any damage. Number 2, wrap your willy before you get silly, because you don't want to be pumping any little baby kids in there and having a fucking screaming nightmare come popping out 9 months later. I know somebody that did that, and yeah, it's okay now, but for the first few months, it was not okay. It was very stressful. And stay tuned, because we will be back with Bruno FM, possibly tomorrow, but we'll be back in the next couple days for another stream. Because remember, we're all a bunch of stuck-at-home morons now, so the only thing that's going to get us through this is alcohol and music. So, thank you, and good night, and I hope to see you back tomorrow.